Hey everybody, my name is Fred Wachtel with Prosperitas Financial. Today what I want to talk to you guys about is beneficiaries. The beneficiary is a form on every IRA, on every insurance policy, on every annuity. When you sign up for these things and you start your investments or your insurance, you put down who you want to have your assets if something happens to you. Now, these things take time. Maybe 20 years ago, you get an insurance policy, you put your beneficiaries on there, but over time, things change. And nobody really reviews these things, and it's very important. And the reason I say this is I've had a personal experience. Unfortunately, my mother passed away in November, right before Thanksgiving. And over the last couple of months, my brother and I have been dealing with some things. But she had one annuity that she put my brother on as primary and me on as contingent. So it doesn't seem like much, but what that means is if something happens to me, something happens to my mother, it all goes to my brother because he's primary. Now, if something happens to my brother prior to my mother's passing, it all comes to me. But what my mom's real wishes was that we both split it 50-50. But because of how she filled out the paperwork, my brother gets it all and I get nothing. Not a big deal. It's not the issue. We're good friends. I love my brother and we're going to split it. We got to figure it out. But this happens all the time for people. It is very, very, very important for you to review your beneficiary designations, whether you want your children to have it, whether you want it to go into the trust, maybe it gets designated to the trust and split up. But there are so many little intricacies that happen with beneficiaries. So if you have, let's just say, 2 children and you want them to get the money right away, you just put your kids on beneficiary, 50% for child A, 50% for child B, and it's done. If you know your children don't get along and you don't want to deal with fighting, you can put your trust on as the beneficiary. But as an example for myself, I have myself, if something happens to me, my wife's the beneficiary. In California, your spouse is automatically the beneficiary on all of your things unless they sign off. Literally a signature with a medallion guarantee. So with all of my stuff, if something happens to me, my wife's the beneficiary. If something happens to both of us, my daughter's 8 years old. We are not going to leave that kind of money to my daughter because all of a sudden the courts take over and they decide what happens to the money for my daughter. So we have the trust as the beneficiary. If something happens to me, it goes to my wife. If something happens to us both at the same time, it goes to the trust, which will take care of our daughter. These are things that, again, it's very complicated, but if you have an IRA, if you have an insurance policy, if you have an annuity, and these things all have beneficiaries associated with them, feel free to give me a call. You can come in. It doesn't cost anything. We'll call them all. We'll get all the paperwork that we need to make sure that the beneficiaries that you want to get the money, should something happen to you, make sure that they get it, whether it's your kids. If you don't have kids and you want to go to your friends or some relatives or to a charity, it's very simple to do. But if you don't do it, you no longer have control of what happens to your assets. So give me a call, Fred Wachtel, Prosperitas Financial. Thank you.